not align with your district's vision. With credits that teachers can take for those that were still within the credit to be whatever they might want to take. So that's the presumed value in this lifetime licensure.
In the interest of time, because
Yes.
we have an 8 o'clock deadline, we'll
Yes.
come back to that at a later time.
Another item that was within the budget and has now been eliminated or changed is the dual enrollment credit. So in the past, there were course options and youth options that were available to our students. And youth options have been in effect for ever and ever, but course options was brought in where students could take course options through different avenues. Those are both now gone, and there's now an early college credit for students. That's now the program. Youth options used to include technical colleges. The new program does not. It only includes higher education colleges, universities. It does not include technical colleges. The reasoning behind this being that the technical colleges wanted the ability to work with schools on their own. For example, there's transcripted credit classes that many schools already offer in agreement with the technical colleges. And basically what happens there is the technical college agrees to offer the course at the school pretty much free of credit for your students, and then the school district provides the instructor who has worked with the technical colleges to make sure that the curriculum and everything that the technical colleges ask for the credit is provided. So it's like an exchange of invoices, if you will, at no cost really to the district or the students. Course options and youth options comes, and the early college credit for students still comes at a significant cost to districts. And now the course options and the youth options, you used to be able to charge students for a portion of that. No longer. It will all be on the district. A large portion. There is a small avenue that it might not be. So that's also a change.
So our second semester requests come to the board in October. So we'll talk about
this,
that some more.
I believe this begins
for next year.
Correct.
Yes, but that will be a great opportunity to understand that more, because that sounds like a major
change.
Major change. Different.
I don't know if you saw Jake's face when I said no longer includes technical colleges. He went. For high school students and counselors, that's a huge change.
And that affects a lot of Columbus students, doesn't it, right now?
Mm-hmm.
The technical, taking that away?
Well, remember, that's the request of the technical colleges. So we have to figure out and work with, so if we have a lot of kids that took certain courses, then we have to see how we can transcribe the credits right here within our own district. So can we provide an instructor for that course, and can we work with them to provide it right here within the district?
But that's our money. I mean, that's us.
Yep.
Taking care of that.
Yep. Okay.
Student requests are due October 1st, Jake?
Yes.
So those will be a board consent item in October.
Coming soon.
And we'll plan on talking some more then about
Okay.
what the future of that holds.
Okay.
I'd love to do it now, but
the
we're at a
last
time crunch.
one, the last one that I wanted to talk about a little bit was, so the Every Student Succeeds Act, which is replacing the No Child Left Behind. So this is the federal government act. The state presented their plan to the U.S. Department of Education on September 18th, and that plan will result in additional work from the districts, from the local district. The one thing that really kind of hit home for me was that in meeting those standards, the state will no longer provide a plan for districts that do not meet the standards. It will be under local control for you to determine, the local districts to determine what it is that you are going to do to adjust, review, implement the changes needed so that you and the district and the students meet the goals of the Every Student Succeeds Act. So that was a huge change. The state backed off. They're not going to have a large role in that. So, when you have, in the past, under No Child Left Behind, if you had a focus school, the state came in and provided you with grant money and said, here's the things that you need to do and follow through on. They will no longer do that in the future. So we are looking for when that gets approved, and then that will mean work for the districts, because we will have to then provide our plan of how we will meet the state's plan for the federal plan. So those were the major highlights from the WASDA conference. Again, a lot of learning, a lot of things that were coming as we were truly at the conference, the budget signing and all of that. So, okay, any questions? In the interest of time, I don't know.
Do you feel good about these changes? Are they going to help the kids?
It's too early to tell, to be honest, Joe. I think when it comes to dual enrollment, I think the more we can help kids do while they're here at the district and be prepared as they, if they choose to take courses that are outside of what we can offer, I think that's great. I think it's going to be some adjustment for us. As a smaller district, it's easier in a larger district when you have more kids taking certain courses that you can transcribe with technical colleges, universities. For a smaller school district, I think it's almost going to have to be that we're going to be looking to other districts to do some distance learning, some co-oping, to have enough students in a class to support a staff person to teach the curriculum, which is, what we always do. What are the numbers, and how can you sustain, the staff to do that?
Does distance education play a role in helping to facilitate that?
It could. It could. And I guess now you would probably call it online more.
Yeah.
But it could. We'll have to see.
Other questions about WASDA conference? Mike?
No, a lot of stuff.
Bill?
No.
Julia?
No, just a lot of things to adjust to and find out how that is going to affect our budgets over the next few years. Which, at this point, knowing the bare minimum is not going to be good for us.
Okay,
Okay.
moving on.
All right, moving on. On the information for you and to consider, I believe at the next board meeting will be also an overnight trip, because the board must overnight out of state. The board has to approve those, and so you have before you a request for FFA, and they will be attending the National FFA Convention. There are 8 students. I know there was a conflict of information. On one form it says 6, on the other it says 8. It is 8 students. They will be going to Indianapolis, Indiana. They are also, a lot of the cost is being shared by numerous districts, so they're taking, a small contingency from each district, and so they are sharing the busing and transportation expenses. Sauk Prairie is basically in charge of that, so when you see a different bus company there than what we're typically used to working with, that's because it's a culmination of districts that are using that bus company. And that's the proposal that I have before you. Any questions on that?
Julia?
No.
Bill?
She answered the question because there's a discrepancy between 6 and 8.
That would be correct. Joe? Mike?
No.
Nope.
Okay.
Okay, moving on to our third Friday of September, which
Okay.
became a Monday and
Well-
a Tuesday.
Well, actually, so third Friday of September is a little misconceiving, because really, you're looking at the number of kids that are in your district Thursday, Friday, and Monday. Because if a student isn't there for the Friday count, if they're there on Thursday and Monday, we can still count those students. So we have to make sure that staff diligently and correctly take attendance on all of those days. We like all days anyway, but it's really, really important on those 3 days because this is for our membership count, which leads to the aid that we receive from the state. And Janelle's going to be talking about that in a little while at the budget hearing. So because we are kind of playing a little bit of catch up with the budget being released so late and trying to get all of that information to you, which is still going to be preliminary and estimated data tonight because we only received that information late Thursday and Friday. We do not have a official FTE count right now, so full-time equivalency for students count currently, but we will in the very near future. So we have to submit that. Obviously, that report is due very soon on Friday to the DPI. So we will be updating the board when we get that final number. When we look at head count, when we do a rough guesstimate of a head count, we are looking at roughly right now about 10 students plus, which you've probably heard lots of different numbers that have been going out. Like, so we started in July thinking, whoa, we've got a large increase in students, and then it kind of has gone down. That's because districts across the state are in the process of registration. So kids that are withdrawing and enrolling and adding, and by the time we get to the third Friday count, it really should be what our final number is. Sometimes we have students that transfer and we get into our district, the second week of school. And then also you have to realize that when students move out, those districts don't make the request for records until the students enroll in their district. And sometimes that's past the start of school date as well. So our original registration numbers are not always, but typically they seem high in July and then they slowly start coming down a little bit. So that's kind of where we're at right now. And once we have those final numbers, we'll make sure that we report those to the board and the community as well.
Questions about third Friday FTE count?
Yeah. You're talking about the third Friday being the 22nd, right?
Nope, the third Friday
Was
was
the 15th?
Yes,
Yeah.
correct.
Okay,
Because they
so it's a
started the
week
first.
ago.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
okay.
Anything else? All right, quickly moving on
Okay.
to K-12 Integrated Literacy Framework. Oh boy,
Yep.
it's been a long day.
So I have asked Becky Schmidt to provide an update for us on the literacy framework, the training that we are providing to our staff. And if you recall, in the last couple of years, we've talked about the data in reading, English language arts, the literacy aspect. The data has always shown gaps in achievement for our subgroups, and the data has shown that our students, majority of our students are not, in most areas, are not reading at grade level. So we had to make a change. And Becky's going to talk about a little bit what that change was.
Yep. So as Annette said, we're moving to a K-12 integrated literacy framework. Some people might be more familiar with the term balanced literacy. We have a semblance of some of that at some of our elementary classrooms, but we're going to take a more diligent approach because the goal for all of this is in the simplest way to put it, we need to improve our universal instruction for literacy, that instruction that all students get in our classrooms. And with literacy, we talk a lot about reading, but when we talk about literacy, we're talking about reading, writing, language, listening skills, communication skills. So just that all encompassing with that. We are working with Black, which is a school improvement consulting company. We started work with that consulting company last year with some work around co-teaching. We're working specifically with their literacy experts from that company to come in and train our staff in research-based instructional practices. So for grades K-8, we are adopting Teachers College units of study which will give us some systemic work across those 9 grade levels. It's curriculum within this framework that's based off of over 50 years of research practice by Teachers College. It's one of the more researched curriculums out there. We are bringing in training for our staff in grade level groups. So last week we did the initial round of training with our grades 6 through 8 English language arts and special education teachers. Wednesday this week we'll be doing some training with grades 4 and 5, and then in the coming weeks we'll be working in grade bands of K1, 2, 3, and then at the high school we'll be doing some training with the 9, 12 English and special education teachers, and then some disciplinary literacy training with the high school science and social studies teachers. A little bit later in the school year, we will also be doing some disciplinary literacy work with the middle school teachers who are teaching science and social studies as well. For this year, because literacy is kind of a big beast, right? Reading, writing, all the communication stuff, we are actually focusing on writing first. There's a couple of reasons for that. If you just start with, when you talk to just even future employers, that ability to communicate is one of the most important skills that we want to make sure that our students are graduating with. And when you kind of think back, and I was an English teacher, so I'm guilty of this traditional method of teaching English, and I'm guessing you guys went through this too, right? Your English teachers, you assign a big, bad, intimidating essay. The teacher keeps it sometimes for a couple weeks, and it takes a long time sometimes to get that feedback back to students. It's not necessarily conducive to best practices for little kids or big kids. And so the framework that we're using is going to help us move writing into a place where instead of teaching students to write, we're teaching students to use writing as a tool to learn as well. It's something and our data is embargoed, and this is going to sound awful. Theoretically, our data becomes embargoed in 2 days, but for right now, we can't talk about it publicly, but we've been working with it internally at the district, and we know we're at that point where that systemic improvement has got to come in, and it's not enough just to say we're going to try this, we're going to try that. We're going at a very strategic, systemic approach. Next summer, this school year, we will be prepping so that next summer we can start reading training with our staff, and then that'll continue on through the school year. And by training, I guess I should back up just for half a second here. We are bringing in professional learning to our staff, and then the remainder of the school year, we're going to back it up with, on our in-service days, continued professional learning. And during the days when the kids are actually here, we have different times throughout the year where we will be bringing in coaches who can observe the teachers and kids in the classroom and provide that immediate feedback. So it's not just one and done with professional learning, and we can impact and support all of our staff in their English language arts classrooms. Bottom line for all of this is we just want to use best practices so that our kids can get the best literacy instruction possible. Any questions?
So we're doing writing this year?
We're focusing on training towards the writing side of the balanced literacy model, and prepping at the same time to then follow it up with reading training. The reading training just requires a little bit more prep work, and we don't want to do it and not give ourselves the time to do it correctly, because with this implementation, the follow-up for us too is going to be making sure that we're actually working with our curriculum and this framework to fidelity. Writing was something that we could bring in a lot quicker and have an immediate impact. And then reading has to work hand in hand, but we have to do it in stages for support for our kids and for our staff.
And then coaches are from this group we're working with? The coaches you talked about?
We will be bringing in coaches from the consulting company. And then we, just because if there's some confusion, we do have instructional coaches on our staff. And in the in-between times, our literacy instructional coach that we have hired on staff is attending all trainings, as are many of the administration and the teachers who are affected. But the consulting company will bring in coaches, and then we'll support additionally with our coach we have on staff, kind of on the in-between.
Thanks.
Joe, any questions for Becky? Ponder for a minute, I'll come back to you. Bill? Julia?
No, but I do, comment that I have is that I like this evidence-based best practice approach instead of pulling things from here and there and what might have been heard. I like the evidence-based. Thank you.
Coming back to you, Joe?
Turn your mic on.
I'm trying to figure out how to ask the question. To me, literacy also has a big component of understanding what it is you're hearing or you're writing or you're experiencing. To be literate in something, you have to understand it, don't you?
If we're starting to talk about
Comprehension.
yeah. There's a couple different ways that I'm kind of processing that question. Comprehension is an important skill that we're trying to develop for a lot of that. So when a student, regardless if they're in English language arts or science or ag or art or, reading within their disciplinary materials, that when they read, they can comprehend and then internalize that knowledge of the
Right.
content. And I'm not sure if that's exactly where you're going with it.
I was kind of
but
looking for that dimension in what you were talking about, and maybe I missed it.
I think that's a skill, Joe, that we ask students to show in any of those areas. So whether they're speaking or they're listening, reading, writing, comprehension is a skill that we ask them to demonstrate proficiency in each of those areas. So you're absolutely right, being able to understand what it is that they're
Right.
doing, but it's a skill within, just like there's multiple skills in each of those areas, but comprehension would be one common skill in all of the areas.
Okay.
Okay.
I have a couple here, but we're out of time. So can I,
Yep.
I'll forward them to you. Maybe we can come back to them with the principal reports next meeting. Thanks, Becky. Annette is requesting that we postpone the principal reports and priorities for student learning until the next
Sorry, guys.
meeting. So I would like and Beth is not present, so we would have to come back to that anyway. So I would like a motion from someone on the board to postpone that until October 9th.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Bill, second by Julia. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Pam, can you make sure that we get that on the next agenda? Thanks. Okay, action. We are considering the proposed budget to present at the annual meeting budget hearing. I am looking for a motion to approve.
I so move.
Second.
I have a motion by Joe, a second by Bill to approve the budget as proposed. Now, I would make note that there are no changes at this time to what the board saw at the last meeting, even though, as a reminder, the state budget has been passed. There has not been enough time to make adjustments to that. So right now, we're still in that proposed mode. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I am looking for a motion to approve consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Bill, second by Mike to approve the consent agenda as presented. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Board debriefing, we have a self-assessment here, if we can make sure we get that done, and back to Joe. And I've got a number of things that we'll make sure to follow over to next board meeting. I will also mention, I will be absent the next meeting. Mike will be facilitating the meeting. I am local, but I'll make sure that he is up to speed. I just don't have bodies to help me that night, so I'm gonna put Mike in charge. And thank you to Keegan and Chet, hanging out in the back there for both the board meeting and for the annual meeting. So thank you for your technology services back there. Looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
A motion by Bill, second by Julia to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. It's 8:02. We're going to take a 3-minute break.